you? We already have 22 people on board. Let's start.
And it's 7:09, so we can start straight away.
Let's start.
All right, sir. Good evening, everybody. It's nice having you again at the third edition of the MFP Capacity Building holding today. You will agree with me that each time we have opportunity to come together like this, it has always been a rewarding section. Before we start with the opening prayer, I want to set the ground rules. Please, I implore everybody to please mute their mic unless it is your turn to speak. Please mute yourself. When you want to say anything, please raise up your hand and you will be recognized. Please let's exercise decorum on this call so that we can all enjoy ourselves. I implore you to please mute yourself. Thank you very much. So we are starting the program immediately. I'd like to call on Professor Emmanuel Onoja to give us the opening prayer. Prof, please, you have the floor. The opening prayer. Thank you. Professor Onoja, are you on this call, please? Okay, I think Prof has not joined. Let me call on Mr. Victor Oguntade to please give us a short opening prayer so that we can proceed. Mr. Oguntade, please unmute yourself and give us opening prayer.
Hello.
Hello. You have the floor, please.
Hear me?
Please speak up.
Hello? Hello? Okay, let us pray.
Okay.
Given to us to be here again this evening. We thank you, Lord, for the sacrifice our leaders are making to ensure that we are trained and have a good knowledge of all what we are doing. I want to start this, the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, that we bless in Jesus' name. Thank you, Lord, because you are good, God. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate that short opening prayer. The
Thank
next
you,
item on our agenda is recognitions. Like I always say, everybody on this call is important, and we appreciate your taking out time to join this call. We are all striving to build our capacity. Thank you very much for taking out time to be part of this evening. We appreciate. But particularly, I like to recognize and appreciate our special guests of honor this evening. We have two of them, King Titus Alaosho and Chief Afolabi Igbarola. They are our guests of honor this evening. Even if they are not on this call yet, I'm sure they will join us very soon. But I'd like to quickly recognize them. King Titus Alaosho is the past chairman of Ibadan and District Society of ICANN, also a past president of ICANN, former board member of PAFA, APWU, and FRCN. He is presently the chairman of the board of patron of Ibadan and District Society of ICANN. The King Titus Alaosho is a former senior partner of Baker Tilly, Nigeria, worldwide accounting firm. He is a deacon of Baptist denomination. He is happily married with children. Join me to welcome Deacon Shoeto as our guest on this call this evening. You are most welcome, sir. Even if he's not here yet, when he comes in, I will come back to him. I also want to recognize our special guest, Chief Afolabi Igbarola. Chief Igbarola is a distinguished chartered accountant and tax practitioner. He is the senior partner of Afolabi Igbarola & Co. Chief Afolabi Igbarola is a past chairman of Offshore and District Society of ICANN and a former vice chairman of Western Zone of ICANN. Chief Afolabi Igbarola is a technical director in MFP Global Services. He is a respected elder in the church and the community. Sir, you are most welcome this evening. We are honored to have you with us. Before I call on the leader of the group for his welcome address, the past chairman of Ibadan District Society of ICANN and CITN, is a past zonal chairman of Western Zone of ICANN and a former member of ICANN National Governing Council, the patron of Ibadan and District Society of ICANN. Has also served as the vice chairman of Association of Nigerian Authors, Oyo State Chapter. He is presently serving Oyo State government as a board member of Oyo State Anti-Corruption Agency, Oyaka. Prince Bade Oyedepo is the president CEO of MFP Global Services, a mega financial training consult. He is a chartered accountant, administrator, author, and a public affairs analyst. Please join me to welcome the leader of this group. Give his welcome address. Prince, you have the floor, sir, for your welcome address. Thank you. While we wait for Prince to take the floor, please, I implore us to please mute our mic. So that we have decorum in the house. Please mute yourselves. When it is time for you to speak, kindly raise up your hand and you will be recognized. Prince, you have the floor, sir, for your welcome address. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Okay. Good evening, all. Let me start by thanking the anchor person, Mrs. Lighton Babatunde, for the introduction. I must also recognize in our midst the presence of the chairman of the section, Yeye Modupe Oyeduntan, FCA, the special guest of honor, Deacon T.A. Shoeton, special guest, Chief Afolabi Igbarola, and my very good friend, the guest lecturer, Dr. Tunde Orija, FCA. I also want to welcome my other colleagues to this important section. I'm happy to inform you that our free lectures have been accredited by ICANN, and henceforth, it will now attract 2 MCPD credit hours. I'm happy to inform you that we applied to the Institute for the accreditation, and we also forwarded to them the videos of our previous editions. And I believe that they were impressed. Hence, they granted us the 2 credit hours for any of our free training programs. So I want to thank the Institute for this opportunity. Then I'm also happy to inform you that we have a partnership with a registered organization known as MFP Global Services. If not for the partnership we have with them, we wouldn't have been able to get our programs accredited by ICANN. You know that MFP Group Nigeria is not a registered organization. Hence, there is no way by which we can organize programs like this, with the approval of the Institute. But we had to partner with the MFP Global Services, and we use the organization to apply for the credit hours, which the Institute granted us. So I believe that the partnership will continue and it will work stronger. Then publicity for our programs. Apart from the fact that our programs have been accredited by ICANN, we are also enjoying publicity from both print and electronic media houses. At the last edition of the free program held a couple of months ago, I announced to you that the communique would be widely reported, and it was widely reported by Tribune newspaper and also Inspiration FM, based in Ibadan. The communique of this program and subsequent programs will also be reported by them. And we are also partnering with other electronic and print media houses to report our programs. Then if you look at it, what are the benefits according to us on this publicity? We have twin benefits. Number one is the fact that our voices are being heard loud and clear. And number two is the fact that we are also imparting knowledge, particularly to those who are not part of this program. Anybody that has cause to read our communique will understand to a reasonable extent the message we are trying to pass across. And that is those are the objectives of publicizing our programs. And also, we have the presence on social media platforms. As we are speaking, our program is being live streamed on both Zoom and YouTube. If you hook up to YouTube now, you'll be hearing us, loud and clear. And I'm happy to inform you that our programs are well watched on YouTube programs, YouTube channels. Then emerging and contemporary issues being featured as topics for discourse. If you look at the beginning of these free lectures, we have been featuring contemporary and emerging issues. And why are we feeding contemporary and emerging issues? One, for us to be able to develop our capacity. Most of us, or all of us, can speak extensively on conventional topics related to accounting and finance. But we may not be able to do so on emerging and contemporary issues if we are not taught. And that is why we are focusing more on emerging and contemporary issues. If you look at the first topic delivered by Dr. Abel Aseyin, it was titled Sustainability and the future of financial reporting. If you go online, Google it, you find out that the materials on it is very scanty. That goes to show that it is emerging. So the moment we begin to educate ourselves on it, we will be the first set of people to know it and also to impart it to others. Then the second edition was delivered by Dr. Chioma Ojukwu on the paper titled The Chartered Accountants of Nigeria in Nigeria and Sustainable Developments. I was discussing with the chairman of session, and I told her that particular topic has been watched over and over again, on YouTube. Why? She was able to relate it to, accounting, and we were greatly blessed. And not only to accounting, to other professionals as well. So we now know sustainable development, how it affects accountants and other finance professionals. Then the third edition of the program was delivered by Mr. Inamdi Uti, with the title Chartered Accountants as Catalyst for Nation Building. If you look at all those three papers delivered so far, they are emerging issues. And that's why I said we'll continue to feature emerging issues. This fourth edition will be presented by Dr. Tunde Orija, titled Offshore Financial Centers and its Impact on Economies. I'm sure we are all going to be greatly blessed, by it. Dr. Orija has a very good wealth of experience, and those who listen to him will be able to gain tremendously from him. Then also, I want to implore our members to be ready to impart knowledge, no matter how busy they are in their various places of work. I contacted about 4 people, to also speak for about 5-6 minutes on this same topic, but all of them declined because they felt they were not comfortable with the topic. As accountants, we should familiarize ourselves with almost all topics relating to finance and financial matters, and we must be ready to impart the knowledge at the shortest possible period of time. Then I'll talk about our presence on YouTube. Then I also want to talk about our presence on Twitter. We have Twitter handle. I'll be able to read a lot of tweets. We get a lot of tweets and we read it. But we have not initiated any tweet, in the sense that, some of us are not well familiar with it. And not only that, we don't want to release any tweet that is not backed up by empirical evidences. So we are going to develop ourselves to a situation where we will be releasing tweets from time to time on topical national issues. So I'll still talk more on that, because we are going to constitute a committee this evening who will be in charge of tweets. So finally, I welcome you to this session, and I pray that we are going to have very useful deliberation. And last but not least, let me thank you sincerely for the cooperation received from you since we started this program, and since the platform came on board in 2018. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you so very much, sir. Thank you for that beautiful welcome address. We appreciate you, sir. So without too much ado, we are progressing in the program, and I want to take the introduction of the chairman of section. Our chairman of section today is Yeye Modupe. I'm going to call on Chioma Ojukwu properly introduce her. Introducing his wife. Mrs. Ojukwu, you have the floor.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Okay, God bless you.
Hello, hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can. Good evening, Ma.
Okay. Let me introduce our chairman for today. My name is Dr. Chioma Ojukwu of Port Harcourt and District Society. I'm domiciled in Port Harcourt. Okay, let's start. Yeye Elizabeth Modukwe Oyedo Tang was born in March 1957. She attended the Polytechnic Ibadan and also the Yaba College of Technology for her professional education. She sat the examinations of the Chartered Association of Certified Accountants, ACCA. She qualified in June 1978 diet and became an associate member of the association in April 1987. With the ACCA membership, she became an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICANN, in February 1982. Yeye Omodupe Oyedutan became a fellow of ACCA in 1986 and that of ICANN in 1993. For her professional training, she worked with Ogunbajo, Okubule and Co. Chartered Accountants and Deloitte, Hastings and Sells from 1978 to 1981. She later joined the services of the West African Examinations Council, WAEC, in Nigerian National Office of the Council as an accountant, and rose through the ranks to the post of Director of Finance. She retired from the services of the Council in 2015. While in the services of the Council, she had the opportunity to attend many professional and management development courses within and outside the country. She's presently enjoying her retirement, playing the game of golf as a pastime, trying to cement the reconnection with her primary constituency, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, and also with her professional colleagues, as well as involving herself in more of her church activities, with a view to improving her religious life and commitment to her Creator. She's a member of the Catholic Women Organization, CWO, and a member of the Catholic Confraternity of Christian Mothers, CCM. She's an ambassador of Mary in the Catholic Church and a Jerusalem pilgrim, JP. She's also a past district chairman of Inner Wheel Organization District 911, Nigeria. She's also a patron of Nigerian Red Cross Society, Lagos State Branch, and a matron of many societies in the Catholic Church, where she worships. She is a mother and a grandmother. Please, may we welcome the chairman of session, Mrs. Odupe. Welcome, ma.
Thank you very much. That was a beautiful profile. Yeye Modupe Oyedutan. I want to be like you when I grow up.
Exactly.
That was a beautiful profile. Ma, you have the floor, ma, for your opening remark.
Good evening, my professional colleagues. The leader of this beautiful group, and we are still expecting a special guest of honor, Deacon Shelton, as well as the special guest, Chief Igbaruola. I hope I pronounced the name well, Prince. I'm smiling because finally I've come to meet Dr. Chioma Ojukwu. Oh, we will talk about that later. This group is a very fantastic group, and no one can tell the story of the group better than the leader and the creator of the group, Prince Oyedepo. The group started as a mustard seed and it has grown into a giant tree. And we never cease to be amazed by the innovations that are being put in that are being introduced every time to make it more interesting. I think it's a privilege, a special privilege to be a member of the group, very versatile group. And apart from the professional education and the knowledge from the profession, one could see that because of the wide areas of coverage, politics, and general knowledge and what have you, it has been very, very interesting. And like somebody once said, he said, if he doesn't go to bed without going to read the various contributions on the group chats. Dr. Choma knows why I'm smiling. So, well, the topics over the period have been very interesting. And I'm sure that the one we have for this evening is also going to be very educative and very informative. And I'm sure that the paper presenter, Dr. Orija, is going to do justice to the paper for the day. As Prince has already told us, the lecture is to improve the capacity and delivery, professional capacity and delivery of members. And this, like he has explained at previous fora, the group came about because of an effort to bridge the knowledge gap. And one of the ways to bridge this gap is to provide this type of lectures. And apart from that, it also improves the self-esteem of the members. You heard a few minutes ago that he said he approached a few people to come and also contribute, and they declined. You know, things like this are good for personal development. And when he even approached me, I said, Prince. But then I said, okay, let me give it a shot. There's always a first time to do something. This is my first time of being the chairman of a seminar like this. And I'm sure that I too, by the time the seminar is over, I would have learned one or two things. And again, I also wish to thank the guest speaker. It takes a lot of courage to pick up your pen and write and also deliver to an audience, especially an audience that is as experienced and as versatile as our professional colleagues are. Because I'm sure by the time you look at all the people on board, they are all very, very highly placed and important people in the society. And I'm sure, again, the question and answer session is also going to be very, very interesting. So on this note, I don't want to, I've had a sneak preview of the paper, but I don't want to, I want Dr. Orija to unfold it, and so that our curiosity will be aroused and we sit down and enjoy the paper. So I'm enjoining us to all sit down, relax, and enjoy the well-prepared and about to be prepared paper. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We do appreciate you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Before we call on our paper presenter for this evening, we will want him to be properly introduced. And I'd like to call on Mr. Tosha Bello to do justice to that. Mr. Tosha Bello, you have the floor to introduce our paper presenter for this evening.
Thank you very much, ma.
Mr. Tosha
Thank you, ma.
Bello.
Can you hear me now, ma? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure, ma. Yeah, my name is Tosha Bello, and I'm here to present the profile of our paper presenter. Dr. Tunde John Orija. Dr. Tunde John Orija is an accomplished professional with over 28 years experience in the management of finance, information technology, and international business operations, covering multinational activities in the sectors of engineering and manufacturing. He studied at the Yaba College of Technology, HND Accounting, 1995, University of Sunderland, UK, Bachelor's in Accounting and Finance, University of Lagos, MBA, and a doctorate degree from the International School of Management in Paris, France, DBA. He is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, SCA. He is currently the executive director of Kaba Metal Nigeria PLC, a Nexan Paris affiliated company. Nexan, a multinational company that is headquartered in Paris, France, is one of the largest cable manufacturing companies in the world. He is also an independent associate of the partner of JBO and Associates, excuse me, a financial services consulting firm, and also holds other corporate directorship in other companies, such as Northern Cable Manufacturing Company in Kaduna, Nexans Power Network Limited, and Nexans Subsea Nigeria Limited. He is a council member of GLG, that is Johnson Lehman Group. GLG is a leading conglomerate of consultants that is headquartered in New York with 22 offices globally. Dr. Tunde Orija was also formerly the financial controller of Siemens Nigeria, a subsidiary of the German multinational corporate Siemens, where he worked in the various capacity for over 12 years from 2001 to 2013. He is the co-chair of St. John's Foundation, a humanitarian services organization with focus on providing educational intervention for indigent students, medical intervention for emergencies, and provision of vocational grants and small-scale microcredit facilities for youth empowerment. He is a past president of Rotary Club of New Times, Okoba, Lagos, and a member of the Paul Harris Society of Rotary International. Dr. Tunde Orija is an ordained deacon of Christ Apostolic Church. He is happily married with young adults. Distinguished colleagues, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our paper presenter, Dr. Tunde Orija. Doc, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Without much ado, I will yield the floor to Dr. Tunde Orija for his paper presentation. Doctor, you're welcome, sir. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Once again, good evening, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. My special appreciation to the leader of the group, Prince Bade Oyedepo, my good brother and friend. I also want to appreciate the chairman of the session, Yeye Modupe Oyenuton, for finding time to grace this occasion. And also I want to appreciate all the attendees, professional colleagues, for giving me this privilege. Thank you. I don't know if this is allowed to can share the slides, please.
Somebody else will do that, sir. But Prof, sir, it appears you are joining, Doctor, you are joining with two devices. Could you please mute one of your devices?
I think I'm fine with one now, correct? Hello?
Doctor, we can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
If you're not the one speaking, please, could you please mute your mic, please?
Okay, can I have the
Doctor,
slides,
please
please?
go ahead. Dr. Rija, please go ahead.
Hello?
Hello, sir.
I'm set. I'm expecting that the slides will be on now.
Prince, could you please share the slide?
Trying to deal with this problem.
Prince, we're waiting, sir. Could you please share the slide?
Hello, Lighton.
Yes, please.
Make him the host to share it.
I don't have the slides on this medium. I'm expecting you to share it, Prince.
Maybe you go ahead. Go ahead with the paper.
Prince,
okay.
Do you have the paper with you?
You know, you do want to.
Sir, could you share it on the platform?
Let me see if I can share it, but let him continue.
Okay.
We sort out sharing the slides. Could you please continue, sir?
Thank you very much. So once again, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. I want to go straight to the presentation. My topic for this evening is offshore financial centers and its implication for economies. And for the purpose of this presentation, it will be structured in 5 phases, in 5 areas. We'll be looking at the introduction. Then I want to talk about the offshore financial centers in terms of its overview. We will look at the specific OFCs, some uses of these OFCs, and of course, the topic of tax havens, because you can hardly discuss offshore financial centers without mentioning tax havens. I also look at the OFC impact on economics, which is the main topic that we are looking at. Then there is a question, which is the 4th area. I want to look at OFCs. Is it a complete disaster? And on that basis, we'll round up. So firstly, what is OFC? OFC is just a short form, an acronym for offshore financial centers. The term offshore financial centers generally refers to as OFC, is typically used for a country or a jurisdiction with financial centers comprising financial institutions that deal primarily with non-residents or in foreign currency on a scale that is out of proportion to the size of the host economy where they exist. An offshore financial center is also defined as a country or jurisdiction that makes available financial services to non-residents, the purpose of circumventing aspects of the non-resident home country or jurisdiction. So an offshore financial center, although not precisely defined, is also a small, low-tax jurisdiction that specializes in providing corporate and commercial services to non-residents in the form of offshore companies and investment of offshore funds. The International Monetary Fund categorizes offshore financial centers as the 3rd class in financial centers, along with other international financial centers and regional financial centers. This categorization of IMF will realize immediately the importance and relevance of offshore financial centers. By the very nature of offshore financial centers, at the first mention, there is always this assumption or this belief that it is an illegitimate organization and illegitimate operations or something like that. It is typically used for a country or jurisdiction that comprises of financial institutions mainly, who deal primarily with non-resident companies. And that is one of the most important aspects of it. In 2007, one of the early researchers, later researchers in OFC, defines an offshore financial center as a or an authority that provides financial services to non-residents on a scale excessive compared to the size and financing of economies. As accountants, we can easily pen it down to say, in more practical definition, an offshore financial center is a center where the bulk of the activities on both sides of the balance sheet are offshore. The receivables are from offshore companies or offshore individuals. The liabilities from offshore companies or offshore individuals. And this is because one other typical thing is that offshore companies, they generally offer significant tax and regulatory advantages, as well as providing clients from other countries with international banking services. Many of the owners of businesses in offshore companies are usually non-resident. And that is what makes the bulk of the definition in this area. While what we have described in the previous narratives, a brief description of a typical financial center, I need to say that there is no consensus among scholars and practitioners on what constitutes an offshore financial center. Various attempts have been made to define them since they started to have an impact on international financial markets in the early 1970s. OFC is of significant concern and interest to the international monetary fund because of the role they play in global economy. And therefore, there has been a lot of research that has been undertaken at IMF level. In the year 2000, IMF issued a background paper where an OFC has been defined as a center where the bulk of financial sector activities is offshore. Thus, as per the IMF background paper, a jurisdiction with the following characteristics. A jurisdiction with the following characteristics will be defined and considered as OFC. I'm in slide 6, please. Thanks for coming through. Slide 6. Now, what are the characteristics in accordance with IMF background paper for us to say, a jurisdiction is offshore? One, the jurisdictions must have relatively large number of financial institutions that engage primarily in business with non-residents. That is, you have this very small island, very small countries where more than 90% of people who deal with them in terms of financial services are non-resident, they are offshore. Secondly, the financial system, the external assets and liability out of proportion to the domestic financial intermediation that is designed to finance domestic economy. Sure. That is, you have an economy where the total sum or the aggregate financial flow is so minimal, and you look at the external financial flows that comes into this, it is extremely significant. Therefore, it is absolutely not proportionate. And because it is not proportionate, there must have been a reason behind that. And that is why we say they are offshore jurisdictions. More popularly, offshore centers provide some or all of the following services, which is typical of most of them. Low or zero taxation. Some of these offshore centers, they have zero or low taxation. or in some cases, there is a moderate or light financial regulation. And also there is the issue of banking secrecy and anonymity. These three key points are extremely important when we look at the characteristics of an offshore financial center. And that is why some equate an offshore financial center with a tax haven, because usually people may begin to wonder, want to make their money, to see it in subsequent slides, the money mainly from financial intermediation, customs duty, discharge. And when you have this volume of business going through them, then you can imagine what will come to such countries in terms of what they do. Now, I wanted to look at the origin and historical development of offshore financial centers. This development can be traced to the period within 1960s and 1970s. And this was a period when many developed nations and sovereign governments attempted to regulate capital flows through the imposition of restrictive domestic regulations. There are situations where you have things like monetary transfer obligations that you have to pass through a lot of papers, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of documentation to get through with some transactions. This is the period when most governments are trying to make sure that the economy conform with some specific standards at the international level. And these restrictions, in most cases, they were intended to provide governments with more control.
In proper perspective. And like we know, as typical human nature, and once they are willing to do that, then of getting them done. And that is why they moved or they migrated to all these offshore financial centers for the purpose of doing their businesses. So these restrictions in many cases intended to have control on the monetary policy, encourage banks and other financial institutions to shift deposits and borrowings activities to less regulated institutions at offshore centers, where there is lesser regulations, lesser restrictions, a lot of banking secrecy, and low taxes. The creation and growth of present-day offshore center is therefore predicated on the following four factors. Why did they develop? One, the establishment of capital controls with a view to reducing substantial balance of payment deficits, recorded primarily by US in the late 50s, and also by many of the Organization of Economic Community Development countries in the 1960s. Then there was also the imposition of high taxes, tightening of monetary policy, just to curb the balance of payments, that all these are aimed to address the physical imbalances. Also, we noticed the removal of foreign exchange restrictions on the conversion by non-residents of current earnings in Europe and other Western European nations, main Europe and particularly Western Europe. Now, the fact that US bank interest is conducting business transactions in foreign currency and to extend their reach to new territories was spurred by this Glass-Steagall Act of 1933, which barred commercial banks from entering the investment banking business. And as typical shrewd businessmen in investment banking, they want to look for options to be able to deal with all these differences, all these restrictions, all these regulations that they have in the economy. If you look at the list of some offshore financial centers that we have in the world, it's quite a lot of them. There's the visualization of the country level network and the resulting ranking of all of them. We have British Virgin Islands, we have Taiwan, Jersey, Bermuda, Cayman Islands, Samoa, Liechtenstein, also, on the lower part, you see countries like Netherlands, United Kingdom, Switzerland, Singapore, Ireland, where they have different OFC jurisdictions under their control. Now, when you look at what we consider as sinks and conduits, the sink OFCs are the countries where all the inflows that came into that country was left in that country as an investment. That is, it was sunk there. That's why they call it the sink OFCs. Whereas the conduit OFCs are the OFCs whereby the inflows of investment, of transactions, of funding, of finance, of new acquisitions was only using those countries as a conduit. The ultimate destination is another OFC or another jurisdiction entirely. So they are only acting as an holding point for the movement of such transactions. And this is sourced from J. Gabacha Bernardo in one of their Global Corporate Ownership Network scientific reports. Now let us look at some specific offshore financial centers. So we see some of the characteristics. They have one of them who is very popular, at least very popular with Nigerians. They always talk of the Panama Papers and all those stuffs. So this specific one that we are talking about here, the first one. Next slide. Yes, Panama. Panama is an independent republic with a very liberal tax laws. In this offshore financial center, there are a large number of local and foreign financial institutions and also a large spectrum of legal and accounting expertise. The banking secrecy is protected by various laws. There is no tax on offshore business, and its legal system is well established. International Maritime Center, and Panama is second only to the British Virgin Islands in terms of number of offshore companies found. Let me state that point, and it is a misconception to say that an offshore financial center is an illegitimate or a criminal-minded business. That is not ab initio the purpose or definition of offshore financial centers. In their host country, they are legitimate businesses duly registered within the laws of that country. The only illegitimacy that can be attributed to it depends who is being. If there is a restriction on that from a strict or the purpose that triggers his investment in that place, and that is what determines whether it becomes an illegitimate business or not. But ab initio, they are legitimately founded business, duly registered in their host country and guided by the rules of that country, even if those rules do not, in some cases, meet some international accepted standards in the area of secrecy, in the area of taxation, and in the area of the kind of financial flows that can happen there. After Panama, I'm just going to take three. I also want to talk of the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man is outside the sovereign jurisdiction of United Kingdom. It is in the center of Irish Sea and 80 miles away from Manchester. This Isle of Man is not Panama anymore. It's well established. Company laws of the island allows a variety of corporate vehicles, including companies limited by guarantee and hybrid companies, and also companies limited by share capital. In the Isle of Man, companies that are not owned by the residents and those that conduct their business completely outside the island, even if they may have an office there, are granted exemption from all Isle of Man income taxes. And you can note that. Companies that are not owned by residents and those that conduct their businesses outside the Isle of Man, even if they have an office there, are granted from all Island of Man income taxes. And this is one of the reasons why synonymously people take offshore financial centers for tax havens. Then of course, the third one is Switzerland. This is one of the most respected offshore financial centers that offers highly sophisticated range of services for a select clientele. The operations of OFC in Switzerland evolved because of a convergence of historical and geographical reasons. They are very well placed within the European area and can be accessed by almost all countries that surround them. Taxes are levied by the Swiss Confederation, the cantons and municipalities. Taxes location due to general rate of taxations. Political stability as well as tax exemption is also available to Swiss companies doing business abroad there. I think this political stability is one of the things that we have to say the key selling point of all these offshore financial centers. They are stable politically, highly stable. There is no disruption in the political system, and therefore investors and those who want to have one kind of business or the other, either legitimate or illegitimate, on offshore financial centers, have the confidence of stability in political system, and therefore the investment will not be eroded in any small time. Now, what do people use offshore financial centers for? Quite some reasons. The first one is offshore banking licenses. In some countries that, apart from people having onshore licenses in their home country, they also have offshore banking licenses in this OFC. An offshore bank is a wholly owned subsidiary in an OFC. The owner of a regulated onshore bank can establish a sister parallel bank in an OFC. And the attraction may be because there is no capital tax, no withholding tax, no dividend or interest taxes, no tax on transfer, no corporation taxes. So on this basis, an onshore financial center and onshore banking may have the interest to go and do something in some other places. There is also offshore incorporation of international businesses. People want to establish international businesses, business that can operate from one location and transact business at the international level with very little restriction from their home country. And this is one of the beautiful offerings that UFC gives to those who want to use it. They're able to create complex financial structures, multi-ownership layers that will enable them to make funds transfer all over the globe, easy as it may be. While this may not be legitimate in itself, the fact that there's a lot of secrecy and anonymity behind it means that one does not really know the destination and purpose of all these transactions. Then we also have insurance companies, and this is a very interesting one. You know, in offshore financial centers, there is incorporation of what they call captive insurance companies. And a captive insurance company is an insurance company that is incorporated by a wholly owned company that incorporated at its own subsidiary, a parent company incorporating an insurance company to take care of all its insurance needs, including insurances that other companies, insurance companies will not be willing, the risk that other insurance companies will not be willing to take on. They establish their own insurance company to do that, and then they keep everything in the same flow. One of the flaws of this kind of problem is that you have a poorly managed insurance company. Claims can be determined whichever way because they still belong to the same company. But we can find out that a lot of conglomerates do this kind of things, and then sometimes they put it in OFC for ease of covering their insurance risk, especially those that cannot be handled by other ones. There's also special purpose vehicles, especially when there is the need to look for a favorable tax environment to perform a certain kind of action that is not allowed or restricted in your home country.
Once 2021.
OFCs are also used for tax planning, especially by wealthy individuals who look at the favorable tax environments and tax treaties. they want to establish trusts and companies and foundations there. There is also a range of schemes which is legally defensible, rely on complexity and ambiguity, and involving types of trust that is not available in the client's country of residence. Then, of course, there is people use it for tax evasion and money laundering, where there is the need to evade taxes because of the tax rate and regulation in different places. There are individuals and enterprises who rely on the banking secrecy to avoid declaring assets and income to the relevant tax authority. Those moving money gained from illegal transactions also seek maximum secrecy from tax and criminal investigation. And that is why I said an OFC in itself is not an illegitimate organization, but because it has these two rules of secrecy and, of course, anonymity of transactions, those who are criminal-minded or who have things to hide, so to say, can easily pass their transactions, their businesses through OFC. OFC is also used for asset management and protection. There are quite a lot of people who want to have a complex will and inheritance system that they want to protect from other people who might take advantage of them. Then they look for, this kind of banking systems where they can keep their assets against the collapse of their domestic currencies and domestic banks and other outside influences that could be out of their reach. And this uses is sourced from the Financial Stability Forum's working group on offshore financial centers report that was published in April 2000. Now, I want to talk about tax havens. And why do I want to talk about tax havens? Because some people, not even some people generally, even within the academic and professional community, we use the terms tax haven and offshore financial center interchangeably, although they may not be the same. However, the term tax haven does not have a comprehensive definition. This is primarily because the comparative nature of tax benefits provided by any jurisdiction, because of relative nature of the advantages provided, every country may be a tax haven to some degrees. In this regard, the OECD tax haven report states that any country might be a tax haven to a certain extent, as there are many instances where high tax countries provide opportunities or devise policies to attract economic activities of certain type or in certain locations. And that is why it is not precise. If any country decided to lower their taxes now, in the process of tax planning, a company, or especially a multinational company in international business, may shift their capital or production or sales to these different companies so that they can take advantage of favorable tax conditions there. It therefore means that if any company decides to be so ridiculously low about their taxes with the aim of inviting investment, they can also be termed a tax haven. And when you're a tax haven, it does not necessarily mean that it's an offshore financial center. Although most offshore financial centers offer extremely unbelievable tax rates, and that's why most of them qualify to be called tax havens. For the interest of clarity, however, OECD has set out the following criteria that must be considered cumulatively, not individually, to know when a jurisdiction can be defined as a tax haven or not. One of them is whether the jurisdiction imposes no or nominal taxes. And if they do, is there transparency or not in the operations? If there is transparency, then according to OECD, it is not a tax haven. Then if there is no transparency, then they want to know whether there are laws or administrative practices that prevent the effective exchange of information for tax purposes with other government or taxpayers benefiting from the no or nominal taxations. As we all know, in the concept of international taxation, there is really nothing tangible to hold on to and call international taxes. Taxes are mainly local. There is no international revenue service. International taxation refers only to local businesses that is done at the international level. the tax implication of local businesses at international level. Therefore, if such a country is such that one cannot source information, that is current country by country reporting that FRS in Nigeria adopted now, where they do this transfer pricing and they want to take all the subsidiary and parent company consolidated financial statement to share the spread of the taxes. If there is a country that refuses to participate in that process, or that has some laws that makes it difficult, and that country is not transparent and imposes zero or nominal taxes, that one will be said to be a tax haven. So transparency is considered very significant in that circumstances, and exchange of information is also important. Modern tax havens, however, have existed since the early 20th century. They were used and are still used primarily, but not exclusively, for tax evasion and avoidance purposes. Since the early 1960s, all the premier tax havens of the world have developed financial centers, known otherwise as OFCs. It is estimated about half of all international lending and deposits originated in OFCs. There is some confusion between the concept of tax havens and offshore financial centers, and it is not only a matter of semantics. The different conception of the two terms go to the very heart of what is considered to be the problem or not with OFC. Even if we say there is a misconception between the two of them, one of the problems of OFC or not is the fact that there is low taxes, and this is impactful. Some experts see no difference between the two and employ the terms interchangeably, like I've said. However, historically, the two terms were distinct. Modern tax havens are known to have existed at least since the beginning of the 20th century, where there have been a lot of differential in taxes amongst jurisdictions that enable tax planning, whereas offshore financial centers is a more recent phenomenon which started in the mid-70s. I want to go to the next slide, where I want to look at the impacts of on economies by OFC, which is the main topic we want to deal with, apart from the background that you have provided. We should understand that financial sector is an integral part of globalization and capitalism. As a matter of time, capitalism fueled OFC because they facilitate the growing mobility of finance by ensuring no or low tax, no or low regulation, secrecy, anonymity to enable footloose capital to roam the world. There are a lot of footloose capital that could have been otherwise idle or redundant. They are able to roam the world freely because instead of keeping the capital idle and paying taxes and paying charges on it, some experienced and financial experts will decide to roam this capital all over the world, and OFC gives them such advantage. Their policies, especially for OFC, play a key role in tax avoidance, tax evasion, money laundering, of course, flight of capital, because capital will fly from where it is heavily taxed. Capital will fly from where there is reduction in capital value. Let's say, for instance, if you have $1,000 a couple of years in Nigeria and you convert it to Naira then, and you still hold the Naira today, I'm sure by now you'll be wondering if you can never get that value again in US dollar. People who have that capital and they look at such kind of situation, once a politically stable environment that provides restriction for them to move in and out, and they want to go. Then we also have financial intermediaries such as accountants and lawyers. They play a key role in development and expansion of OFCs. Despite the veneer of liberal democracies, some OFCs are captured by the finance industry and advance the interests of financial capital. Many OFCs are nurtured and protected by leading Western hegemons with developed capital and financial markets. Because when you look at it at the end of the day, the Western world powers are fighting against OFCs because they want a good level playing field. But at the same time, almost all of them, London, Tokyo, New York, they have financial centers under their jurisdiction because of the benefits inherently that they create from such financial centers. So we now look at the impacts quickly about three of them. Next slide, the first one is tax avoidance. OFC impacts on the economy is such that they enable evasion of taxes in such countries, leading to a disproportionate tax burden on middle-income taxpayers and effectively undermining sovereignty and tax fairness. People who do businesses and earn money in a specific country can channel those money by complex of tax schemes to an OFC so that they can evade taxes. Whereas the economy from where this money or this resources is coming from is being fueled, is being managed by some other people who cannot evade such taxes. Therefore, there is no level playing field, and there is a proportionate burden on those who earn middle income because they are not able to engineer or put in place such complex system that can enable them to take advantage of an. Places like the Cayman Islands are attractive. Because they have developed a banking and financial center, no income tax, no corporate tax, no inheritance tax, no withholding tax. They only have import duties and transaction facilitation fees. And you can imagine a very small island where there's some of them less than 1 million people there, and they're taking facilitation fee of about 10%. Imagine the volume of business that will go to them. And so they thrive on volume. Even at 10% facilitation fee is a huge amount of money. The tiny island of Sark, one of them, which is part of the Channel Islands, it does not even permit motor cars to move on a single road because it is a very small island. It has only 575 residents. And between these 575 residents, they have more than 15,000 nominee company directorship between them. According to the UK Home Office, a report in 1998, one SAC resident is a director of 2,400 international companies. Because that's what they do. Just hold directorship, special purpose vehicles, and then they're able to do these businesses. There is no requirement for companies to publish any financial information. In Georgetown, the capital of Cayman Island, is the world's 5th largest banking center. Such a small company, such a small country derived from 20% import duty and fees for facilitating secretive bank accounts. They do not enable elected governments to eradicate poverty because they fight environmental degradation and finance education, healthcare, pensions, and much needed social infrastructure. So elected governments are not able to do this because of the activities of this local government. Germany is estimated to be losing some $15 billion in tax revenue annually to undeclared personal savings held in offshore bank accounts. You can get that from a book, an article by Christian and Hampton, 1999. The US is also estimated to be losing some 70 billion of tax revenue each year due to offshore hidden assets, large enough to finance the free healthcare of all the US citizens. People just hide their wealth there so they're able to avoid taxes. These are very, very serious implications of that. In a report published by the then Deloitte & Touch, taking account of tax avoidance schemes run by companies and wealthy individuals, they estimate that Europe may be losing 100 billion pounds a year of tax revenues, as published in the Financial Mail on Sunday, 25 November 2001. Britain may also be losing 85 billion, this is as of 2002, a year in tax avoidance evasion. And this amounts to enough money to build hospitals, schools, and pensions. But then they don't have access to this information. One other impact, which is a direct implication of what these wealthy companies and multinational companies are doing to avoid taxes, next slide, is economic underdevelopment. Offshore tax havens, they facilitate economic underdevelopment by encouraging tax avoidance and flight of capital. Next slide, please, thanks. They also facilitate novel business vehicles, such as international business companies and tax-exempt companies. The secrecy and poor regulation in OFCs enables corrupt leaders and businessmen to steal money and stunt the economic development of their countries. The use of offshore tax havens by global corporations is depriving developing countries of some 50 billion of tax revenue each year, which is large enough to free them from foreign aid. Next slide, please. Rising debts and poverty. How to take the last bullet point there, they said the use of offshore tax havens by global corporations is depriving developing countries of some 50 billion of tax revenue each year, large enough to free them from foreign aid, rising debt and poverty. According to Offshore in 2000, tax havens provide companies and wealthy individuals with a way to escape their tax obligations. So that is the direct impact of economic underdevelopment. Next one, we look at the impact, which is money laundering. According to the United Nations Office for Drug and Control in 1998, the common denominator in money laundering and a variety of financial crime is the enabling machinery that has been created in the financial havens and offshore centers. Because there is no way money could have been laundered if not because of the rules, the regulations that surrounds the business, with very little information, unlike the KYC that we have in Nigeria now. As you all know, some few years back, let's say, for example, some few years back in Nigeria, an individual can open 10 bank accounts with 10 different names, 10 different signatures. All you need is any kind of ID card showing his face and with that signature that he wants to use. Then there is no BVN, then there is no bank verification numbers, there is nothing like that, there is no NIN. So such looseness in regulation is what aids money laundering. And this still exists even in OFCs today. But then, is that enough to say they are illegitimate? Of course they are not. The regulations in their country allows for such level of secrecy, such level of anonymity in opening an account, and use one person to front and it goes. So according to new law enforcement agencies, modern economic crime, the kind that ruins lives and destabilizes countries necessarily involves money laundering, which in turn require bank secrecy. You cannot avoid money laundering if you have bank secrecy. It is inappropriate for international lawyers and bank regulators, especially in the offshore banking system, to defend this in the abstract. Banks in London and the Isle of Man have been part of a very elaborate $7 billion money laundering operation, as published in the Times of 18 February 2000. The secrecy provided by the Marshall Islands, this Marshall Island is measuring only 30 miles long and 400 yards wide, has also enabled the Russian to launder money.
Hey, I'm listening to a lecture.
To launder money. So you can imagine a country measuring only 30 miles long and 400 yards wide. And when you look at the volume of transactions that come into it, and that is why we say an OFC is a country where the volume of offshore financing is not proportionate in any way to the financing in country. Then still talking about money laundering, next slide, we have offshore companies in Switzerland and Gibraltar, established by UK chartered accountants. We are used to pay bribes to officials to secure cable laying contracts for telephone and television. This is a serious fraud office report in 2001. You know, they created a company, a set of UK chartered accountants created an offshore company in Switzerland, and the main objective is to use them to pay bribe because, of course, in the main jurisdiction of UK, they will not be able to do that. There was a case that was documented where an accountancy firm used 27 companies registered in London, an offshore jurisdiction, to launder money. Also, the US Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation revealed that a Big Five accountancy firm enabled a crooked debt to set up a shell company in Antigua. The shell company went under the name of Merlin Overseas Limited. This company, there was no actual physical business in Antigua, and it consisted of little more than a fax machine. The firm's employee serves as managers and directors of the company. And what did they use this company to do? They just use this company to pay bribes to some banker in the name of a Virgin Islands company, which was paid, of course, into another Swiss bank company, where definitely the secrecy will be maintained. So that is so much for money laundering. It's part of why OFC is of concern to almost everybody. Also, there is the corruption aspect. OFC attract unsavory business elements, including money launderers, terrorists, and dictators. It is on record that in Nigeria, the former Nigerian dictator, General Sani Abacha, stashed away $4 billion by using banks in Switzerland and London. It is also estimated that in 1999, corrupt political leaders stashed away $20 billion in Swiss bank accounts, where secrecy is guaranteed. In 1997, the Pakistani authorities tried to sequester the assets worth £940 million from his former premier, spread out in 9 countries, including Switzerland. So when we see all these countries looking so fantastic, so marvelous, we know exactly where the funds are coming from. In some OFCs, banks which are no more than closets with computers can be formed for a capital of just £500. And once they are done, they move money around the globe with ease. Companies can be formed with no fees, and bank account can be opened with emails and minimal checks. So such OFCs easily attract those who want to do illegitimate business. But because the law in their country was allowed businesses. So I also want to look at the next one, which is part of the impact, that's financing of terrorism and transnational crime. Next slide. There are general
Please let us hold on. We lost Doctor there. I'm sure he will join us again. Please just hold on.
Hold on. Electron, right hand.
Hello? Hello?
Good evening,
Hello,
sir.
sir. Welcome back,
Good
sir.
evening, sir. Welcome back.
Sorry, I was out of network. Apologies, please. Thank you. Now we talk of financing of terrorism. That's slide 22. I would say there are generally 3 stages in financing of terrorism: raising, moving, and using of the fund. And independent of the stages in which this terrorism financing is done, In most cases, they are identical and they resemble how to launder money. And in this way, financial institutions play critical roles. The most obvious impact is the direct economic destruction of property and lives. Terrorism indirectly affects the economy because it creates market uncertainty. That's part of the impact. Xenophobia, loss of tourism, and increased insurance claims. It is estimated that the economic impact of terrorism at $33 billion in 2018, in the 18 years from 2000 to 2018. Terrorism caused the world in total economy of $855 billion. Here you can see one of the most countries affected in terms of the largest economic impact as a percentage of their GDP from 2010 to 2018. If you look at our Nigerian example, for instance, prior to 2011, it is still less than 1%. But as of 2012, terrorism is costing Nigeria 2% of its GDP. It rose to almost 3% in 2015, and then it was going down again. The latest data shows that it increased in the later years after 2018. And this is as a result of money that they have been able to launder to finance terrorism. Terrorism financing is done mainly through money laundering, and it is more prominent with offshore financial centers. So if take the next slide, we want to look at the Nigerian factor. If you look at the Nigerian factor, next slide, the Nigeria, though not an host country for OFC, is impacted by the activities of OFC. In addition to contributing to the supply side of corruption in Africa and specifically Nigeria, the West has historically played a major role in laundering the proceeds. From publicly available information, the offshore financial centers in facilitating allied money laundering practices, the evidence shows that in pursuit of organizational and personal interests, the offshore financial centers create enabling structures that support illicit activities of political and economic elites, most especially from developing countries. Such activities are only possible because they are enabled by the very activities of OFC. The establishment of money laundering laws in Nigeria, the creation of anti-money laundering agencies have not brought about ethical conduct within the global banking system. And the practical implication is that it is impossible to quantify the volume of money laundered, but it has been estimated that money laundering may account for as much as 5% of the world economy in total. Social implication is that substantial amounts of illicit money undoubtedly flow out of developing countries, including Nigeria. And the resulting effect of this is that it undermines the democratic and economic basis of the society. It leads to institutions are weakened, and there's loss of profit in the rule of law. Utusoya did an article in 2012 where I look at another political effect of money laundering in Nigeria and say that it undermines political stability. When money is laundered, when there is a lot of movement of funds and capital to OFCs, it also leads to democratic structures of the countries and good governance. It undermines also the democratic structures of the country. It undermines good governance. Because then those who are able to manipulate the political system are those who also have access to funds that you cannot account for and you cannot trace. And such funds are only possible when you have, a secret operations that can generate cash for you and distribute cash for you, even outside whatever system is in place. Such activities also result in instigating social and political unrest within the country, such as we have witnessed in Nigeria. Money laundering has been recognized as the lifeblood of transnational criminal networks, including drug smugglers, terrorists like Boko Haram group and human traffickers. Laundering enables criminal activities to flourish as much as possible. And this is part of the activities of financial or offshore financial centers. Next slide. With all this background, and that is the next slide I want to ask, are we going to say offshore financial centers is a complete disaster? Are we going to say they are useless and responsible for all the problems in the world. Well, it is generally perceived that corporations or individuals use OFC primarily because of the minimal taxes and the banking secrecy afforded by these OFCs. But of course, like I've said right from the beginning, there are some bona fide, legitimate purposes for which OFCs could be, and they are used by corporations or individuals for conducting such business. So it is not a complete disaster really, because it allows for some things. One of the things is OFCs, offshore financial centers, allow businesses to reduce costs by providing a centralized group services or shared services within a multinational group. OFCs allow effective movement of capital and resources, providing opportunities for global investments. That's a free flow of capital. When there is restrictions, capital cannot flow easily. Let's say, for instance, in Nigeria, as we are all accountants, we know if you want to bring in capital, you need to first of all have an agreement in place. They need to send the money, foreign currency must come into your account, must be converted into dollar. You must get your certificate of capital importation, so that by the time you want to take out your capital or interest, you must have fulfilled all these preconditions step by step. Otherwise, you cannot take it out. Most often, some businesses failed in fulfilling some of these conditions, and the failure of one of them, with the current instability in the currency, makes it difficult, if not impossible, for many multinationals to repatriate their funds. But in OFCs, it is almost an impossible situation. You can always move. There is no monetary transfer obligations. There is no need to register this form to be able to do that or the other one. So OFCs also provide facilities to manage financial affairs confidentially and provide legal protection from unjustified claims. And of course, this is more important for places like the Western world, places like US, etc., where law is a way of life there, where people having information about you is enough to take advantage of you, where people with one kind of business relationship with you can take the smartest loophole to drain of whatever you have. And that is why most of these wealthy business people in the US, in Europe, it may not be obvious, but they have a lot of things in Panama, in Cayman Islands, in Isle of Man, in Switzerland, Antigua, and all these places where they can put the money and they have some kind of protection. OFC also permits the use of intermediary holding companies to overcome strict exchange control regulations. And OFCs are low tax jurisdictions, which help corporations save significant taxes and reduce the impact of transfer pricing rules in home countries. There are some organizations that transfer their shared services to OFCs, and they consolidate their control system there, so that from there, the shared services can be done, and the inflow of funds will go there. They will be sending money there to pay for the shared services of this international business. And when the money goes to that place, it takes little or no taxes. Therefore, at the global level, the international business is able to retain its profit and its cash for itself. There are also other benefits too that are associated with using an OFC. Like we all know, there is the secrecy and confidentiality. If you are very much interested in keeping your transactions confidential, you want it to be secret for whatever reason, and you are able to get your way around it, OFC is a beautiful destination for you. However, if there is a restriction in your home country from doing that, and you decide to do that, then you are of course breaching your local and your source country law, and therefore you are performing an illegitimate act. There is also the tax benefit, which we have mentioned, storing of funds in a district jurisdiction can be used factors such as low or nil withholding tax on interest, etc., and worldwide income. And of course, there is easy access to deposit. Lower level of regulations allow easy access to the money stored by the company. In OFCs, there's no limitation to the amount of money you can spend on a day, on a month, on a year. No transfer. So it allows people to have easy access to their money, and you can break investment and still maintain the returns there. There's also higher returns in OFCs. Some offshore banks may operate with a lower cost and can provide high interest rates than the legal rate in the home country due to lower overhead. Then other benefits, offshore banks can sometimes provide access to politically and economically stable jurisdiction. This will be an advantage for residents in areas where there is risk of political turmoil, who fear the assets may be frozen, cease or disappear. However, it is often argued that developed countries with regulated banking systems offer the same advantages in terms of stability. So still looking at it, is it a complete disaster? OFCs and tax havens have long been criticized because of the tax arbitrage advantage provided by the jurisdiction. These allegations may be true, and tax havens play a significant role in world economy. But with steps taken by such jurisdiction to tackle issues of money laundering and terrorism, KYC regimes, such jurisdictions will continue to play a significant role in the global financial economy. It will also be important to consider that the tax advantages provided by OFCs and tax havens also afford tax neutrality to a transaction by eliminating tax burdens on the proposed transaction or structure in the primary operating market. You know, in the international business, when you do business at multi-layers, at each layer of each country, there's always a tax impact. But when you do it within OFCs, you can have some neutrality that will make the global tax expense or the global tax cost a little bit better. As regards confidentiality, a majority of the tax havens and OFCs have implemented, slide 3, please. I'm in slide 3 already. I've implemented, okay, they have implemented anti-money laundering laws and have also signed exchange of information treaties to assist tax authorities from jurisdiction where there is a case of tax evasion. How faithful they are to these treaties is another matter, and because I think, okay, we are there. Let's take the last one there. I say, how faithful are these companies to these treaties is what we cannot determine. I want to conclude at this point, and in conclusion, from our discussions, we can see that OFC appears to have a negative connotation, especially when you mention offshore financial center, Panama, Isle of Man, Antigua, and all this Jersey, Switzerland, Liechtenstein. You know, the first impression is, yes, these are negative situations, but there are some positivity to it. However, it is still a long way to neutralize the negative connotation, which is born out of reality. Because rather than relating development and expansion to the globalizing logic of capital, some have explained the emergence and development of OFC as a reaction to the high tax and high regulation regimes created in onshore jurisdictions, which we have mentioned before. But we can see that very deregulated economy, like when Thatcher was in London or Reagan in the US, when they were there, and they tried to deregulate the system, abolish exchange control, reduce tax rates, yet it did not stop the activities of OFC. The secrecy and law regulation facilitated by OFCs also attracts more launderers because it is facilitated by them. It attracts money launderers, financial crime. There is a complex corporate structure and a labyrinth layers of transactions, nominate and non-cooperative regulators, which are encountered in the processes that seek to trace the money. It's always very difficult to trace. It also appears that OFCs are protected by major Western laws. We have mentioned that. Despite that economy, the close relationship between the big business and politics helps to provide the suffocating political stability that capital so craves. The fiction is that Jersey is an autonomous island that is neither part of the UK nor the EU. However, this is not true. It is an in and out. It is still part of the territories of UK. So finally, Is the world just looking at OFCs and they are not doing nothing? Or what can the world do about it? Relevant action points by key stakeholders can stem the tide of the negative consequences of OFC or bring it under control if we have the willpower and we have the concerted effort in the following ways. One, global actions. There's the synopsis of international policy initiatives on IMF website. If you're able to get to this website of IMF, you'll see a lot of initiatives. For the sake of time and space, I did not put it there. Quite a lot. There is the FAFTA, there is the ISCO, there is the Europe Action Body, all of them. IMF is working, putting on research papers to be able to set standards for all these OFCs, because they are in sovereign jurisdictions. You cannot just give them rules, but you can just set standards that they must comply with for them to be able to work with other jurisdictions. Same with World Bank. World Bank too is be able to monitor what they do, and they're also trying to ensure that whatever they want to do with World Bank, they are completely in compliance with the regulation of World Bank in the areas of banking regulations, monetary controls, and prevention of laundering, corruption, and terrorism. Same thing with the OECD, that's the Organization of Economic Community Development of Europeans, where most of the Europe countries, where they develop and task and issues, particularly the council there, European Council Development. They look at the tax planning, they look at regulation for tax havens, and they issue statement from time to time, including research, to see how it works. United Nations too, they have their bid, and also world powers and financial centers like US, New York, UK, London, US in New York, UK in London, and Japan in Tokyo. These are world powers financial centers. They also try to make sure that their financial stability is not eroded by OFC. On the part of national government, there have been some actions, legislation at country levels. For instance, in Nigeria, we have the money laundering law. We have the financial and monetary regulations from time to time. The ability of people to be able to make use or make advantage of these OFCs. And of course, there is the action by professionals, lawyers, accountants, bankers. If you look at the preview of what we did somewhere ago, most of those people that are able to put in very complex schemes that enables wealthy individuals or corporations to take advantage of the negative side of offshore financial centers, most of these people are lawyers, they're accountants, they're bankers, who facilitated the processes, who created the companies, who provided the legal framework. Like we talk of a company that was formed in Isle of Man by a firm of chartered accountants, where it's these same members that are the directors and managers, and it's just a simple room with a fax machine, and it poses for a bank, and it's doing $1 million of business. And the main business they do is simple international movement of fund transfers from one source to the other, and for different purposes that cannot be seen. So I think from the part of professionals, we have to resist compromises due to pecuniary reasons. We have to maintain integrity, which is the hallmark of the professions from our side. Also, we have to look at individual actions without being unnecessarily self-sanctimonious. The allies, wealthy individuals and those in position of power, to key into intentionally addressing underdevelopment within their territories. They have to intentionally address it. If they don't key into this and want to address it, then it will be a problem for them going forward. I think I've come to the end of this presentation. Thank you for listening, and I hope I've been able to raise your interest in this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks so much. In fact, if this was a physical seminar, we should give you a standing ovation. We really appreciate your time this evening. Thank you very much. It's been a rewarding session. I'd like to yield the floor back to the chairman of the session to continue from here. Ma, you have the floor, ma.
Thank you, Mrs. Babatunde. I want to sincerely thank the paper presenter, Dr. Orija, for the well-delivered and articulate paper, well presented with the speed of light. Because in trying to keep to the time allotted, one had to be really, really very, very alert to follow. It was well delivered. We heard him clearly. And like somebody said on the chat, the Zoom chat, it was, the paper is a very deep and interesting paper. He covered all aspects. He introduced the topic, gave us the origin and the historical development, gave us the list of some of the centers, and mentioned specifically Panama, the Isle of Man, and Switzerland. And I think when it comes to Nigeria, the Swiss banks readily come to mind. And he also mentioned the uses of the OFCs, the incentives, and also refers to the fact that they are tax havens. And he also mentioned the impact on the economies with specific reference to that of Nigeria. And when he said that, what readily comes to mind is the issue of money laundering and corruption that we are trying very, very hard to fight. And like anything that has an advantage, surely to have disadvantages. But in this case, it's my own personal opinion. It's like it has, the OFCs have a lot of disadvantages when we look at the Nigerian factor and the impact of the activities of these OFCs on our own economy. And he referred also to the fact that the positive aspects in those countries where we have these OFCs is that we have political stability, which is probably part of why there is a flight of funds from Nigeria to some of those other countries. So on behalf of everybody on the platform, I would want to say a very big thank you to Dr. Orija. And maybe I too I will come for some lessons in how to deliver a very good lecture within such a short period. So thank you very much. I also want to, in the course of the lecture, I think I noticed that Alhaji Razak Jayola, AJ Silicon, a past president of the Institute, is in the meeting room quoting Mrs. Babatunde. And also Dr. Asen, I want to say thank you, sirs, for being there for us and for providing the much needed guidance for everybody. And I don't know, Mrs. Babatunde, does that take us to the question and answer sessions?
Yes, please.
I'm not sure whether
unless we want contributions.
Special guest of honor and our special guests, I don't know whether they are still with us. I'm not sure that.
Not quite, ma. But we can take contributions from any other person. I'll require
can you
raise our hand. Pardon? If we want to make contribution, hand or question and question, please raise up your hand so that you'll be recognized.
So do we take all the questions? Sorry, I'm sorry. Do we take all the questions at a stretch?
I think that will be better.
Okay. So
I'm sure Dr. Rija will note them, then attend to everything together. I can see Mr. Saying raising up his hand. You are recognized, sir. Any other person? We can start with you, sir. Please, you have the floor. Dr. Asay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I must say that Dr. Rija has done extremely well. For the first time, I saw a topic that I really didn't have an idea of what it was about. And when I saw it, I said, what does Dr. Rija want to tell us? In fact, I think it's an area where one needs to do a lot of research. He has given so much information this evening that I'm inclined to go and do more research on this and gain more knowledge. It is very good. Thank you very much, Dr. Rija, for this great exposition. It's a brilliant presentation. It's an area that many of us didn't quite look at. Having said that, my mind tells me that this OFC, they are created by developed countries to exploit less developed countries like us. You do not see rich people, rich organizations from developed countries going to launder their funds there. People from our part of the country enjoy taking their money to Switzerland, to Panama, to British Isle of Man and all that. Those in developed countries don't do so. So what is in it? What is in it that drives our people to go in there if it is not criminality? Because we have said that the activities of those people are legitimate in their own jurisdiction. But here, they are illegitimate activities, and those people are encouraging our people to defraud the system to enrich their own. What do you think? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Do we have any other contribution or question so that Dr. Rija can respond to them once and for all? Our revered past president, sir. Good evening, sir. We are honored to have you with us. You have the floor, sir. Alhaji Razak Jayola, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, the people presenter and the House. I must commend Dr. Richard for a well delivered paper. Like Dr. Hussain has said, the topic was really strange to me. I've never listened to any presentation on this topic, but it's in his characteristic style. He has done real justice to it, and he has really opened our eyes. A lot of areas we never thought of before. You know, it's very unfortunate that in this part of the world, we are making use of those platforms to promote illegality. And I think we really need to sit up and see how we can really do a lot of research on it. And our politicians should please try and do something about this area. So Dr. Rija, thank you once again, like you have done the other time. In fact, I've enjoyed this one considerably well. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that contribution. We appreciate you, sir. Do we have any other comments, contributions, questions before we allow the paper presenter to wrap up? I can't see any other hand up, so I invite the paper presenter to react to those contributions before the chairman of section gives our closing remark. Dr. Rija, you have the floor, sir.
It's like I can't hear him from here.
I think the network is not friendly tonight. So
Okay,
I
can you
yield
hear
the
me
floor
now?
to you, ma.
Yes,
Okay, we can hear you,
we
sir.
can hear you now,
Thank you,
Dr.
sir.
Orija.
Thank you. I said the question by Dr. Ezen as that it is only people from this side of the world that are using the OFC, that probably it was created to exploit the world, to exploit this part of the world. From our perspective and based on research, the OFCs are not actually created because they want to exploit the African countries alone. OFCs are created by those countries that are OFC decided to make themselves OFC so that those who have criminal-minded purposes can have a place to execute their criminal businesses. You know, like I said, it's in their own jurisdiction, they have their law, and every business is established there is established legally. Wealthy people from the western part of the world uses them for different purposes, which is mainly two. One, they want to avoid taxes on their wealth and their assets. And secondly, some of them, for some reasons of confidentiality, probably inheritance issue, family issue, partner issue, they want to be able to separate some of their wealth, so they use it. Most of the people from the western part of the world that use it, that is what they use it for. The third set of people that use it from the western part of the world are organized crimes, like the mafias, who just need to find a way to move their money that they have gotten illegally across the world, and therefore they look for a jurisdiction where controls is loose, where there are no taxes, where anything can happen. But from our part of the world, almost everybody that uses it are those who are criminal-minded, money launderers, corrupted individuals and politicians, or those who have access to funds, in an illegitimate way, and they want to move it around, and they want to be able to have access to it in every other way, such as we have seen by politicians, our late dictator, General Sani Abacha, who is a case study all over the world in terms of money laundering, particularly with OFC. So it therefore comes to say that, like I've said, that in as much as every country is sovereign, and these are sovereign nations, and you operate in that country within the law, then you are not, it's not an illegal setup. But what you use it for, and I'm looking at it totally from the point of law, what you now use it for is what determines the legitimacy or otherwise of it. So it's a question of law, and at the question of time, is a question of moral decency and uprightness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You will all agree with me that tonight has been very, very rewarding. We really appreciate you, sir, for taking our time to put us through this. This is indeed a new and strange topic to us, but you've broken it down, and we are indeed very, very refreshed. I'd like to call on Mrs. Tolu Olatoyan to give her rapporteur reports before we have the closing remark by the chairman of section. Mrs. Tolu Olatoyan, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank the paper presenter again for this very beautiful presentation. So I give the report. This is the communique on the 4th webinar of MFP held on the 16th December 2022 with the title Offshore Financial Centers and its Impact on Economies. Offshore financial centers is typically used for countries with financial centers comprising of financial institutions that deal primarily with non-residents and or foreign currency on a scale out of proportion to the size of the host economy. Jurisdictions that have relatively large numbers of financial institutions engage primarily in business with non-resident centers with low or zero taxation. Number 3, OFC can be traced to the period within 1960 to 1970, and this is the period when developed nations and sovereign governments attempted to regulate capital flows. 5, creation and growth of OFC is predicted on establishment of capital controls, the imposition of high taxes, the removal of foreign exchange restrictions on the conversion by non-residents. 6, some offshore includes British Virgin Islands, Taiwan, Netherlands, UK, to mention a few. 7, SINC OFC is a jurisdiction in which a disproportionate amount of value disappears from economic system while the conduit OFC is the jurisdiction through which a disappropriate amount of values moves towards St. OFCs. Number 8, Panama is an independent republic with a liberal tax laws, and the banking secrecy is protected by various laws. 9, the most respected OFC offering highly sophisticated range of services for a selected clientele. Taxes are also levied by the Swiss Confederation, the cantons, and the municipalities. 10, OFCs are used for offshore banking licenses, corporate international businesses, insurance companies, SPVs, tax planning, tax evasion and money laundering, and asset management and protection. 11, OECD encourages countries to adopt information exchange on an upon request basis. 12, all primary tax havens of the world have developed financial centers known as OFCs. 13, OFC is considered less offensive than tax havens. 14, OFC enables evasion of tax in some countries. They do not enable elected government to eradicate poverty, fight environmental degradation, finance education, healthcare, pensions, and much needed social infrastructure. 15, OFC encourages flight capital and they facilitate novel business vehicles. The secrecy also encourage corrupt leaders. 16, the common denominator in money laundering and a variety of financial crimes is the enabling machinery that has been created in the financial havens and offshore centers. You cannot avoid money laundering if you have bank secrecy. 17, OFC engenders the financing of terrorism and transnational crimes. 18, Nigeria is impacted by the operations of OFC. Substantial amount of illicit money is recorded to fly outside Nigeria, and this undermines the democratic structure and good governance of the country. 19, OFC legitimate purposes allow business to reduce costs within multinational groups, allow effective movement of capital resources, provide facilities to manage financial affairs confidentiality, permit the use of intermediary holding companies to overcome strict exchange control regulations, and help operations save significant taxes. OFC is therefore not considered a complete disaster. Other benefits of OFC include tax benefits, easy access to deposits. OFC, though, has negative connotations, yet there are also some positivity to it. The last one is that the OFC's negativity can be curtailed through global actions, national government actions, professional and individual actions. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to report this evening.
Thank you very, very much. We really appreciate that brief capture of everything that we have learned tonight. I yield the floor to the chairman of section for our closing remark. Ma, you have the floor, ma.
Thank you, Babatunde. I also want to thank on our behalf our Rapporteur General, Mrs. Olatoyan. I hope I'm right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
thank you, ma'am.
Tolu Olatoyan.
Okay. For the detailed capturing of the points raised, while still thanking Dr. Tunde Orija for a well-delivered paper.
Thank you, ma'am.
Also thanking two elders in the house who made their contributions to the paper delivery. Actually, when I got the topic, I want to confess that I went on Google to go and check. So that was before I had a sneak preview of the paper, before it was sent to me by Prince Oyedepo. So I believe that we have had a wonderful evening, and we have learned so many things. And we have also seen, coming back home, some of the, I think coming back home, we have seen more of the disadvantages.
Yes.
From our own point of view. We have seen more of the disadvantages. And whenever the word OFC is mentioned, our mind goes to the disadvantages and the damage that it has done to our collective psyche and the economy of the country. But then, nevertheless, like I said earlier on, there are always two sides to the coin. And again, I like the way the paper presenter drew his conclusion. I think everybody is free to make up his mind on whether it is good or it is not so good. So I want to thank you all, thank everybody for participating. Some people have already left. I think at the time, the number of participants was about 54, 55. And but quite a number of us are still in the meeting room. So I want to say thank you, although I think somebody else is still going to say the vote of thanks. I don't know, Prince, are you on?
I'm on, ma.
Okay. So maybe do we ask Mr. Innocent or Sime to
Okay, yes.
of thanks before we
Yes.
listen to your announcement?
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, distinguished colleagues. I want to thank all that were present in this paper presentation. Like Madam noted, at a point in time, we actually had about 58 participants. We thank Prince Oyedepo, the leader of the group, a leader of men who has like from little beginnings, like the oak tree is growing gradually into a mighty tree. We thank him for the leadership he has provided, and also for this very platform for our education. We also want to thank, I also want to thank on behalf of the members, Dr. Orija, yes, for his well-researched paper. We thank him. We also want to thank, I also want to thank on behalf of the group, the elders in the house, past president, Razak Jayola, my brother and my friend, Dr. Abel Ayseng, and of course, my very good friend and my elder, Hat Zoya, because I did notice that he was present. I have to acknowledge his presence. I also want to, on behalf of the group, thank the politicians in the house, the chartered accountants in politics in the house, people like our friend and brother Moses, Dr. Moses Adeogo, representing the APC, and of course the other Labour Party person, Namdi, and so many other persons. Yes, on behalf of the group, we also want to thank beautiful Chioma, Dr. Ojukwu, with her ever-present smiles and co for the good work she has done. And of course, for our own Yeye of the house, Mrs. Budupe Oyedunton. So on behalf of all of us, I say thank you to all that to the presenter and all those that attended. God bless you all.
Thank you very much for that detailed vote of thanks. We appreciate you. Prince, over to you for the announcement so that we can call it a day. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Laiton. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Let me assure everybody that we are going to expose the communique to Dr. Orija for him to vet before we release it to the press. We are going to talk, about the advantages and disadvantages of it, and give advice on the, how it can be deployed. Then we are also going to talk about the rules of professionals, and the topic. They are going to form part of the communique to be released. But before we do that, between now and Monday, we'll embellish the communique and give it to Dr. Rija to vet before we release it to the public. Then I talked about the Twitter account the other time, and I made mention the fact that we are going to set up a committee who will always brainstorm on what we are going to tweet and our responses to tweets. The committee is made up of 7 people. I know by the time they want to do anything like that, they will show it to me before they tweet. The committee is comprised of the following: Dr. Tunde Orija, Dr. Chioma Ojuku, Dr. Abdulrashid Balogun, Mr. Innocent Osime, Mr. Abiodun Adedeji, Dr. Tope Babajide, and Mr. Femi Gotosho. I'm sure they are going to, always brainstorm and give a very good tweet, which will portray us very well to members of the public from time to time. Then I want to assure you that the free lectures will continue. This marks the end of the free lectures for this year. That of next year will also commence either in sometimes in February 2023. We shall continue to partner with our stakeholders. And to also assure you that the communique for this edition and subsequent editions will be widely publicized. Then members are encouraged to leverage on opportunities created by this platform to network for business purposes. I've mentioned it repeatedly that we already have an organization in the name of MFP Global Services. 20 people came together to form this organization from within the MFP Group Nigeria. That is commendable. I'm sure they are going to make a lot of inroad, and they are going to redefine training programs. Because where you have about 20 people coming together is huge volume, and I'm sure they are going to make tremendous progress. I also want to encourage others to team up efforts. If we cannot form, large audit practices, we can diversify to other areas. Consulting is there, and so let us utilize the opportunities we have. Then I also want to thank Mrs. Sheyi Williams, who joined during the course of the program. She was with us for quite some time. Mrs. Sheyi Williams is a former member of ICANN Council and the former head of service of Lagos State, former Auditor General and Accountant General of Lagos State. So I want to thank her. Then I also thank Mr. Arthur Zoya. Then I want to thank everybody for the cooperation received from you throughout 2022. I pray that you are going to give us the same level of cooperation in 2023 and beyond. So on behalf of the group and on behalf of the MFP Global Services, I wish everybody, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance. Thank you and God bless you all.
Thank you very much,
Thank
friend.
you very much, sir. Thank you very much. So apparently this is our last section for this year, 2022. And I also joined the leader of the group to wish us Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in advance. Thank you very much. Alhaji Lukman Dauda, please give us the closing prayer. Is Alhaji with us on this call? Can any Muslim colleague give us the closing prayer, please? Alhaji
Mr.
Babatunde Kilani,
Yes.
can you please give us closing prayer?
In the name of Allah, the gracious, ever merciful, we thank him, we adore him, we praise him for this opportunity that we have been able to tap our knowledge and wisdom from our senior colleagues. We pray that this organization grows from strength to strength, and may the love of God continue to bond every one of us as we are approaching the Christmas and New Year festive period. We pray that by the grace of God, it shall be well with every one of us. And next time we meet, we shall all meet in peace and not in pieces. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka anta mujibud du'a. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka anta samiul alim. Wa innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Do have a lovely evening and weekend ahead. Thank you for joining this seminar tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Night.
Leave.
Hello. Is the meeting over?
My brother, I guess the meeting is over.
Okay, all right.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good to see you once again, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother.
Well
Thanks,
done,
I
sir. Yes, sir.
appreciate.
Yes, sir. Have a
Thanks,
wonderful weekend, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You too. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay.
Oh.
What do you say?
Nigerian beer.
11. Okay.
11 is okay.
11 is okay for us.
11 for everybody.
Fine. For everybody.
Yes.
Including ICANN people.
I can't remember. They are going to Lagos. It's about their flight is 2 o'clock. It's okay. So 11 is okay.
So we're like
we have 3 from ICANN. Then 3